Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Real Estate Unfiltered. I'm Marlee Russell. I'm a real estate agent based out of Roanoke, Virginia, and I am beyond excited for this guest today on this episode. We have not had someone from this side of the industry on here, so we get to have a home inspector to pick their brain. Josh Morris, he is with Detail View Home Inspections. So without further ado, how are you doing today, this week, New Year, all of that?
Yeah, doing well. Today was busy. I had two inspections today, and then my family just getting over a couple of illnesses with the kids. I got a 2-year-old and a 9-year-old, and a couple weeks ago the 9-year-old had strep, and then
Oh,
last week the baby had flu A, and then of course Mama got flu A, and luckily I've been free and clear, knock on wood. But everyone's back at school, back at work, so good week. Small wins.
oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, whenever you have kids, I feel like they're just cute little petri dishes that it just like no matter what, it's going to run through your house. It's just you hope that it is like I don't know. Part of me is like I hope it gets us all at the same time, and then part of me is like no, I'd rather be able to take care of people and then they're good while I'm dying. Um, but I don't know which is easier. Which do you find easier? Whenever everyone gets sick at the same time, or when you have
Well,
time to
yeah. My wife says when I get sick, I get the man flu. It's like I'm dying. And like I do pretty good, like pain, back pain, knee pain, like headaches, like I'm good. But if I get like really, really sick, then it is like, oh, the woe is me and I'm dying. But I would rather get sick than like my baby or my 9-year-old,
Yep.
be sick and hurt and I can't do anything about it. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think I can, even though she says I'm a big baby, I think I can deal with it better than the kids. And that way they don't miss school and stuff like that. So
Yeah. It's always hard with I mean, I have a 4-year-old, so I'm not at that stage of the 9-year-old yet, but when he still doesn't like want to blow his nose or like do certain things and I'm like, if you just blow your nose, like I promise it will help you. Um, how's that with the 2-year-old? Kind of the same or
yeah, that, and we got like a snot sucker outer thing, and
Mhm.
getting that to it takes two of us, one to hold his head and the other to
Yep.
get it to his nose, but that thing works. And
It really does. They they act like we're torturing them, but it's like, I promise it's for your good. I
yeah,
promise. Well, let me stop while I'm ahead talking about kids and being sick because that's not what this is about. But I kind of wanted to start this off with I'm always so intrigued to ask folks in your line of work how you got started in the business. I saw some of it on your website whenever I was doing some recon, but for everyone who doesn't know, how did you get started doing home inspections?
yeah, good question. So I was at Clayton Homes for a little over 15 years, and I call the dark side of real estate manufactured housing. And in 2014, after 15 years, I was so burnt out, and anything sounded good.
Hmm.
And State Farm came calling and offered me an opportunity to open my own agency in Salem, which I did. And unfortunately, 2 years in, I realized that I don't belong in an office 8 hours a day.
Hmm.
When I was at Clayton, half the time I was out in the field visiting home sites, meeting contractors, building inspectors. And the other half time I was on the lot, you're walking houses, showing houses, you're not in the office that much. So realized I wasn't happy. And so kind of working towards the end of that, I was like, I miss real estate. I miss working with people. I like traveling here and there. Like what makes sense? And
Hmm.
researching home inspections, it kind of all fell together. And truthfully, I wish I'd have found it 20 years ago. I love what I do now.
Awesome. So, what year did you just kind of jump right into having detail view home inspections, or did you kind of, um, get mentored by someone else in the business before you opened up your own?
Yeah, so in 2018, me and a business partner, we started a company, and we kind of jumped into home inspections at that point. To get your license, you do have to do a certain amount of ride-alongs with the license inspector. You got to take 70 hours of training, pass an exam. So there is some mentoring there. So
Mhm.
the person that did the ride-alongs for us, Floyd Gibbs, I consider a mentor now, a good friend. Still talk to him on a regular basis. Um, but we kind of really just jumped into it at that point, and it took off. And then almost a year ago now, I started my own company, went my own way.
Awesome. That is so cool. I feel like it also is a little in line with what I've read about like appraisers and how they have to kind of go through a process of kind of being paired up with someone else who's more like senior in the industry too. Um, how was the prep work and like taking the exam and going through all the credit hours and stuff? Was your head kind of spinning and you were like, oh, thank God I passed? Or how did that kind of go?
Yeah, so when you hit the button on the computer to finish the exam, like I thought I did good, but you really don't know. And it was like, oh, what's going to happen? But luckily, I passed the first time. But I think a lot of that comes back to my construction experience that I
Mm,
had, being at Clayton Homes, being in construction. And prior to that, I did floor covering and I helped my granddad build houses too when I was younger. So I had some construction knowledge. Without that, I don't think I would have passed the first time. But
mhm.
I mean, it was straight studying every day for 2 weeks,
Yeah.
to make sure I passed. So it was definitely a question mark when I hit the submit button, that's for sure.
Well, you're not alone there with being like, I hope I did. I think I did good. With me, whenever I went for my test, because it was just so much stuff, just on a different side of it than what you had to go through. And honestly, yours is probably harder. But I hit the end button, submit button, and it said I passed for both. And I'm like, wait, really? And so then I literally went up and I gave her everything, and she's like, you passed. I was like, did I really pass? Like, I was like, are you sure? Because I didn't expect it because not everyone passes on the first try. So I was
Oh
kind of
yeah,
like prepping myself, like, no, it'll probably be the second time. So I was more than ecstatic whenever that happened. But I'm sure after all that studying for you, you were like, oh, I can breathe. um, and just kind of let out like a easy sigh of relief. That's awesome.
absolutely.
That's awesome, though. So, I guess one of the things I did want to ask you about um, is how did you kind of navigate 2020 and 2021 in that market where I feel like where a lot of folks still wanting to do home inspections? Because I've heard from other agents that, that kind of fell off for a little bit, but some folks were doing like after they purchased the home inspections after the fact. So, how did that work for
Yeah,
you?
absolutely. I did see a tick down in the number of inspections that we did. And a lot of it was people waiving inspections to, make their offer competitive. I'd say maybe 10% of the ones that waived, got an inspection after the fact for their own knowledge.
Hmm.
But it was definitely down from, the prior year. But tried to focus on ancillary services. So adding sewer scope inspections, adding termite, um, well inspections, trying to add additional stuff to one, bring more value to the clients and realtors to be a one-stop shop, but
Hmm.
also to try and help pick up some of that missed business to make up for it. Because it was a drop for sure.
No, I mean, that's super smart on your part. Now, is it you doing all of those? So sewer scope and termite and everything, or do you have other team members on your team that you can kind of parse that out to?
Yeah, it's just me. Now I do work with a couple of exterminators. I can sub some of that stuff out, but for a large portion of it, I'm doing. I got a sewer scope camera. I'm radon licensed. I have 5 test
Wow.
machines. Um, I've taken training in the WDI or the termite inspections. So I'm pretty much, I can do it all. But if I get too busy,
Awesome.
I know to ask for help and sub it out too.
I was gonna say, so like the most serious question of it all, like when do you sleep? Because if you have two kids, a wife, and you do all of that for for your company, you're probably not sleeping a lot.
Yeah, when you're self-employed, it kind of all stops with you. And,
Hmm.
there's nights I'll get the kids to bed, and I'll be up doing some continuing education or doing some book work or making a marketing flyer or social media post, scheduling that stuff out. Um, it's definitely all hands on deck. And unfortunately, I'm all the hands. So
Yeah.
it kind of stops here.
So, are you raising any of your kiddos to do this, or do you think that they're going to do something else? I know you said that you were at a basketball game for one of them this weekend. So,
Yeah. My 9-year-old has talked about wanting to, he said, when can I go on an inspection with you? It's like,
Aw.
yeah. So hopefully that desire stays around. And I'd love to have him, come into them and be a father son, and then eventually mentor him. And then when I ride off into the sunset, maybe he could take it over. But you don't want to force things on your kids. My biggest thing is I want them to be happy and successful, and find
Mhm.
their own way. So if they don't want to get into home inspection, that's fine as well.
That's awesome, though. That would be pretty cool if he kind of stays on that path to do it with you. So, what areas do you serve? Is it all of like the Roanoke Valley? Further than that?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a general rule of thumb, I service a 2-hour radius around Roanoke. So Lynchburg, NRV, the
Mhm.
Lake, Martinsville, Danville, Botetourt, Craig, pretty much within a 2-hour radius. But I joke and tell people too, like, just ask, because most of the time I don't say no. So I'm probably gonna go there if you need me to do it. Um, so
Okay, awesome. Well, I will keep that in mind for sure. Um, Especially since you do everything kind of one man show. That's super appealing because then you don't have to, you know, coordinate with like 7 different people for inspections and stuff. Um, Now, here's a funny question I always love asking, especially some of the inspectors that I've worked with this past year and a half. What what is the craziest thing that you've seen on a home inspection so far?
so
Because I'm
that's
sure you've
easy.
got some good stories.
That's easy. It's kind of embarrassing. Luckily, there wasn't too many people at the inspection, but I did this house that was an estate sale that the son was selling for his dad's estate.
Hmm.
And was having a hard time, emotionally getting stuff out of there. He's straightening up, packing stuff. So there's a lot of stuff still in the house. So I go into the attic, which it was a walk-up attic, no light up there. So I got my flashlight, I'm shining it around, and it hits this box of baby dolls, and
Oh
like the
no.
eyes with the light, like it was.
Oh,
Like, thinking back now, it was funny, but I'm thinking I screamed like a little girl because it just caught me off guard, and these eyes were staring at me in the dark. And the guy's like, "Yeah, are you all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm all right." But it was a little laugh, but yeah, those dolls were a little creepy.
yes. That honestly reminds me of, I don't know if you've seen this commercial. It's probably like some home insurance commercial that like Geico, and they're going up and looking at the new house, and there's like mannequins in there. And
Yep,
the guy's like,
100%.
ah. And then like the insurance agent is just like, well, enjoy your new house, and he like books it out of there.
Yep.
Oh man. Oh my gosh. I can't imagine. Have you encountered like any like, you know, raccoons or possums or cats or whatever, like in crawl spaces and stuff whenever you've gone in there, or not too
Mice
much
for
yet?
sure. Seen a couple snakes, which I'm not a snake fan. Seen a couple snakes in attics, in crawl
Mm,
spaces. Um, Cats, no. Now I've seen different animal feces
mm.
in attics, like some big feces. Like, that's a big raccoon or a big squirrel. Like, kind of like, I hope it's not up here, because that thing's gonna be huge. But luckily, no crazy run-ins. You know.
Well, that's good. That's really good. What is probably like, if you had to think about maybe not the craziest or funniest thing, but like um, biggest issue that you've ever seen on a home inspection report?
Major structural foundation issues where walls not only have cracks, but you can kind of like see displacement between the wall to where the wall shifted out, or
Mm.
like the top is 3 inches in versus the bottom being 3 inches out. Just major shifting in the wall.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
probably the craziest thing I've seen.
Yeah, that is one thing that as a realtor, you're just praying it's not like crazy water issues, crazy electrical, or crazy structural. Because like it's not cheap. Like it
No,
is. And then you always have to get another inspection by, another professional to really give you a better ballpark of what that is. And it's just like, oh no, here we go. Um, I feel like a lot of those that I run into, and I've seen like personally and for clients, has been more so in like the old Southwest area with like awesome homes,
mm-hmm,
tons of character, but they're all built in like 1905, 1910. And of course, there's going to be, after 100 plus years, there's going to be some issues. It's kind of funny, though. I feel like some of those houses are built sometimes better than newer ones. But it's kind of like, it's just kind of doesn't always happen. So it's weird with each property and how it kind of goes back and forth on, you would think that there might be an issue and then it's perfectly fine. And then other times you're like, I didn't foresee that happening. But so one thing I did want to kind of touch on, because like I said, I was doing some recon and research and stuff on your website. But this stuck out to me. I saw that you guys said we inspect each home as if our mom was buying it. And I just love that that's kind of how you go into it, because that's kind of how I go into, buying and selling for clients. I kind of go into it like I actually have helped my grandmother buy and sell her house. I've helped my mom do that as well. And it's kind of like, if I don't feel comfortable having them there or my child there, obviously we can only advise, but give them all the information to kind of make the best decision for them. Is that kind of how you go into all that?
100%. Even going back to when I was at Clayton, I realized that, we, people in real estate that have their hand in the transaction, we get to do one of the biggest three things you do in life. Mm-hmm. You get married, you have kids, you buy a house. That's one of the big three. And so I take that very seriously. And what you have to remember at the other side of that transaction, who you're working for, and even the people selling the house, they're all people, mm-hmm. They're an individual. And, kind of going back to my mom, like, I love my mama. Like, there ain't nothing I ain't going to do for her. And, so that's kind of the mentality I take is, if she was buying it, how would I inspect it? And that's kind of how I go into it, so that I can give the best value to my clients.
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly, 1,000,000% plus 1,000, all of that agree. And I think that kind of separates people from, and folks in the business, whether it's a realtor, an inspector, like anyone in this industry, separates them from, maybe someone who's just in it for the transaction or someone who really cares. And that just kind of sets you apart. So that's really cool. I definitely noticed that. And I'm sure a lot of people kind of feel that whenever you go over the inspection and stuff with them.
I hope so.
So let's see. What, I told you, Mondays, I don't know. Mondays, words are hard, days are long. You have toddler and they're just crazy. But what is kind of like something, like how does your day-to-day kind of go, I guess, is what I'm trying to ask. Like, do you have everything always lined up? Does stuff pop up that you have to, like an emergency inspection, or how does that kind of go?
Yeah, for the most part, it's structured. Like my normal times, if I'm double booked all week, then I'm doing an inspection at 10 or 2. I try to be at every inspection a little bit early. So at 10 o'clock, I'm probably going to be there about 9:30, and then 2 o'clock, I'll probably be there 1:30. And then that's scheduled out. But like today, I'm on my way to first inspection, and I had a realtor text like, "Hey, can you do a radon test for me, just a standalone radon?" And looking at the schedule, I was like, "Yeah, I got a machine free. I won't need it back till this date." Mm-hmm. And it happened to be 10 minutes down the road where I was. I was like, "Hey, I can actually go set it at 1 o'clock in between my first and second inspection."
Oh, cool.
And so, that was able to get done. So there is some, spontaneousness to it sometimes, but for the most part, it's pretty scheduled out. And communication is the key too. With so many people involved in the transaction, you've got to have it scheduled out and be on a time frame. Because something I learned at Clayton is time kills deals. Mm-hmm. So you got to get it done and meet your deadlines and meet your obligations of what you said you would. So it's pretty structured for the most part.
Gotcha. Well, I'm glad that you gave that little nugget of you're usually 30 minutes early, because if we ever work together, I do not want to be late. That's the one thing that I'm like, I hate if I'm ever late, even by a couple minutes. So good to know I'm going to have to be 35 minutes early to the inspection.
Well, I tell everyone, like, I'm usually outside for 30 to 40 minutes. So if you get there on time, I'm going to be good either way.
um, so I guess this kind of just came to mind because I was thinking about like the process, and personally, whenever I went through buying my own home before I was a realtor and then now after, and kind of seeing how that goes. When I was buying my first home, we brought my in-laws to the home inspection as well. So how do you navigate whenever the clients are there, one, and two, they bring their entire family, and then they have someone that, you know, usually is like, oh, have you checked this out, or pointing things out, and kind of acting like the inspector, but not really the inspector. How do you kind of go about that?
The good old dad at the inspection.
Yep.
Um, Again, kind of going back to what I said, you just got to remember that the people on the other side of that, they're people, and if it's their daughter or their son, they're doing what I would do for my mom. They're
Mm-hmm.
taking care of their children, so you got to keep that in mind. But you got to stick to your process, communicate with the client and the people there. Like, haven't got that yet, but it's on my list. You know, if you get and if it's kind of close to what I'm gonna be doing, like, hey, let's just take a look at it right now while it's top of mind.
Mm-hmm.
Or hey, I ain't got there yet. I gotta get this finished up, but I promise I'll circle back. We'll talk about it, and kind of just making sure you're taking care of their concerns. That's the biggest thing, because again, it is one of the biggest three things you do. And to that dad, that their child is everything. They're going to make sure that they get the house right, and you're doing a good job for them.
No, I completely agree. It's always tricky though, because I never want them to kind of be in your guys' way, because you guys have a job to do too. And you also, like you said, you are on a very like structured schedule of you have a certain time allotted. You might have a little bit of wiggle room, but you also have to drive to get to the next one and everything. So it's kind of like a good balance. But what is one way? I'm kind of curious about this. What is one way that us realtors can kind of help the process for you as the home inspector? What's like a couple things that would just like help your process, or make it a little bit easier?
Of course, making sure there's access, letting us know if someone's going to be there, if the seller's going to be there, if the tenant's going to be there, if it's, non-owner occupied, making sure the utilities are on, making sure
Mm,
water and gas is on.
that might
Because,
help.
yeah, because inspectors, if like there's a cutoff valve off, like we're not cutting that on. We
Mm,
have to assume it's off for a reason. If we cut on water that's off and then there's a leak, we
yeah, then
created,
you're liable for it.
yeah, actually 100%. So, and a lot of people don't understand that and get, well, what do you mean you can't cut it on? Like you can cut it on, and then have to,
Mm-hmm.
like, well, let's just wait,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, exactly. And you hate to be like that, but we are in a litigious society, and you can't create that inherent liability. So yeah, making sure the utilities are on, knowing who's going to be there, um, you know, communicating timeframes and when you need stuff by, and with radon pickup, um, stuff like that. Yeah. But for the
Gotcha.
most part, the realtors I work with are really good. I mean, Roanoke has a lot of really great realtors.
Yeah. For the most part, everyone I've encountered, and I've only been doing it for a little bit, have been awesome and super helpful, especially to a newbie like myself last year. It was nice kind of feeling like, okay, they're able to kind of cheer me on and help me out as much as they can, even though they might be on the other side. They kind of had some understanding, because we've all been there. We've all been new in the industry at some point. Um, I kind of want to circle back though, because how you were saying it's one of the most important things, and like stress related, and people are putting hundreds of thousands of dollars into a purchase. So honestly, the home inspection to me is one of the most important things. I don't really recommend anyone to take it out. I'd much rather, personally, like, I'm not saying $500 or $600 is a little amount of money, because it is a chunk of change. But in the grand scheme of things, being out $600 and not stuck in a house that has a ton of problems, it's more than worth it, and
Oh,
completely. Um,
100%. Yeah,
But
I mean, especially the things that I've seen over the past 4 years are like, I mean, I get why people do it, but to me, it's like that is the craziest thing. You just know what I've seen, and the number of houses I've done the past 4 years. And like you said, the ones that you think are perfect sometimes are the worst ones, and the ones that you pull it up and you see the pictures and address, and you're like, oh Lord, this is going to be a rough day, and then it's like you write up nothing. I mean,
yep,
it's hit or miss. You really don't know.
it's kind of crazy. But I bet that's kind of what drew you in a little bit to the job, is that it's never the same thing. It's always something different. Like it's still you're looking at a property, but there's different factors to it that arise all the time.
Yeah, 100%. And I love houses that even when I was at Clayton, like we'd have home shows, and when we'd go, I'd walk every house and look at everything, how they're built, how the rooms are laid out, decorated.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I just love real estate. I really do.
So, do you have any investment properties yourself, or have you ever thought of getting the real estate license too? Or,
Yeah, it's funny you should say that. So I do have a rental now. It's a townhome in Woods Crossing.
oh,
So I
nice.
picked that up last year. So that's going well. And I'm actually studying to get my real estate license now, just so that I'll
Nice.
have full-time super access. I
Yeah.
don't I don't plan to sell. I have no desire to do that, but like Lynchburg doesn't have the same boxes that Roanoke does, so they can't grant third-party access, and a lot of the agents don't know how to grant third-party access. So
Hmm.
it's just it'll make life easier picking up radon machines. If a realtor's running late or something comes up and kid's sick, they can't get there.
Yep.
I'll have access, so it just makes sense, and that's kind of my next goal, next step that I'm doing.
Awesome. That is one thing that I like going between like New River Valley, um, Roanoke, and also like up in Northern Virginia. Like they all have different lock boxes. And I try whenever I'm having, listings and stuff, I try to do the RVAR, the super box, but at the same time, like a coded box too, because it's a pain in the butt whenever you're trying, like if you're out and about and you can't get the dang app to work on your phone, and then you can't give access but you can't get there. So I try to just have both, so it kind of, I'd rather not have to use it than need it and not have it.
Oh
uh,
yeah.
but completely agree. I've kind of, there's a couple other inspectors for like different stuff like radon that have their license still, that makes it useful, for why you're getting it too. You can just be able to go right in, and not have to worry about that piece. But so you're adding what, a 10th job to your book of tricks?
Yeah, pretty much. But like I said, I have no desire to sell real estate. I'll leave that to the professionals. But one thing I didn't mention earlier is 3 years ago I added the engineered foundation report for manufactured homes. So if you do like a
Mm,
manufactured home and lending requires that engineer stamp report, I'm doing that as well. I partner with an engineer, and we can knock those out for you too.
awesome. I didn't realize that. I haven't gotten too much into the manufactured homes just yet, but I'm glad to know that, because once that happens, I'll be like, wait, who can I call? So that'll be good to know. Um, Now, one of the questions I always kind of like to ask folks in the industry that have been in it at least, longer than me, and even if you haven't been, I like to ask this question. What is one mistake that you made that you feel like you've learned the most from?
Um, I'd say being in too much of a rush, or I guess this kind of goes together. Overextending yourself, kind of being in a rush accidentally. So like today I was telling you about that realtor called and said, "Hey, can you do this radon test?" And I'm like, "Yeah,
Hmm.
sure." So right away, I put in my calendar, 1 o'clock, set radon address. There was a time before that when I told Real, like, yes, I can do this, and I was in the middle of an inspection or middle of something, and I didn't put it on my calendar,
Mm,
and then overextended myself to someone else, like, hey, like I got this time slot open, completely forgetting about, hey, I should have put that on the calendar and not, and then kind of overextending myself and double booking on. So learn from that. As soon as you you have something, you document it into the calendar. You got to be organized.
Oh my gosh, yes. I live, breathe, and die by my calendar. Because between work and then toddler, I don't know. Is he considered a toddler now that he's 4? I don't know. But toddler, and then trying to also have some semblance of like a wife and husband relationship. And then also my like workout, keep myself sanity time. If I don't put it in the calendar, it's not going to happen. Like it's
Yep,
just not possible.
100%.
Oh my gosh. But no, I'm sure with your job comes, a lot of scheduling, a lot of attention to detail, are probably the top 2 things that you need in order to kind of do your job and do it well. Would you say that's right, or am I missing anything?
No, I'd agree with that. And then also, communication. A lot of it is not what you say, but how you say it.
Mm-hmm.
And, it'd be easy to freak a client out with, you know, 20 items on the report. But, if they don't come or if you're not communicating well to them, those 20 items are little maintenance things or little piddly things. That's no big deal. But if it's not worded correctly, and I mean, it's the world of them. And, you know, this is the worst house in the world when it's really not. So
Mm-hmm.
communication, I think, is big as well.
I completely agree. That's one thing too, whenever I'm going over the report, that it might be, a material defect, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it is a huge cost. Sometimes it's a simple, not super expensive fix. So being able to have like yourself there, either there or be able to like answer questions and explain that to them is really helpful, on my side, because we might work in the same industry, but we have 2 different sides of it, and I'm not well versed in what you are. So that's always super helpful. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Um,
I prefer for the client to be there.
mhm.
If not for the whole thing, at least for like the, walk through, walk around at the end. And for the ones that can't be there, past couple of years, there's been a lot of clients buying sight unseen, just buying from a video presentation. Like it happens. And so I tell them, like, look, when you get the report, call me. I'll pull it
Mhm.
up on my computer. You can have it pulled up. We'll walk through it together. I've done, I don't know, probably 10 or 12 FaceTime walkthroughs with a client where they're not there. And then, at the end, the realtor and I are FaceTiming, kind of walking through the house, going over the things. Um, Again, it's one of the big 3 things you do. So, you got to take it seriously.
Mhm. Well, and that just kind of goes to show like that sets you apart too, though, because not everyone does that. Some people, just like my dad before, like years ago, he was explaining before I got into this industry, kind of like not the best situation that happened. And now that I'm in it and I'm rethinking about that story, I'm like, if he had just had someone that actually would have explained it to him, like more in detail than just here's the report. All right, now I have my money. I don't have to talk to you. But that just makes the world of difference. Um, so they can really make an educated decision with what they're given. Um, so no, I think that's awesome. But I know I've taken up a lot of your time, and you probably have studying to do. You probably have kids to bathe and get to bed, all that fun stuff. But where can everyone find you? Are you on Instagram, Facebook? I know you have your website. I'm going to share that for sure. But where can everyone find you?
Yep. So I'm on Google. You can Google me, Facebook, Instagram. Um, I think I have a Twitter. I don't even know what to do with Twitter, but I think I have a Twitter.
Okay.
But don't look for tweets from me or anything like that. But you can call me, text me, Facebook message me, email. Anything I can do to help. If it's just a question about something, um, please reach out.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I'm definitely in the show notes. I'm going to be sharing every place that we can find Josh Morris with Detail View Home Inspections. I'm definitely going to tag the Twitter handle so that we can look up your old tweets. Um, I'm just kidding. But guys, thank you so much for watching another episode of Real Estate Unfiltered. If you liked it, if you learned anything, please like, subscribe, share, all that fun stuff. And stay tuned because I still have a lot of guests coming up. You don't want to miss it. But have a great day.